Hello and welcome. We're doing a Miss Libby Rose Makes today, and we are making a little wallet, like a purse, phone holder, could be a pencil case with a big button enclosure on it. So you can size this up or down however you'd like, because I'll show you as we're cutting it out. So first of all, you gather up your materials. So you'll need 2 pieces of fat quarters, probably something a little bit clashy or a bit something that goes with. I've got pink polka dot and floral outside. Then you will need sewing machine, iron, scissors, hand sewing needles, because you're going to need a hand sewing needle to sew on your button. You'll need a button as well. Now I've used these extra large buttons that come in these cool packs from Hobbycraft. I just love them because they look really cool, but also they are like quite funky, just a nice big button to go on there. Yeah, so you'll need the button, need your hand sewing needles, and the one-step buttonhole foot. So if you've got a one-step buttonhole on your sewing machine, then take the foot for that, and don't worry if these giant buttons don't fit in the part on the foot. That's fine, because I have tried and tested it, and we just put it to the largest setting and it works. So take my word for that. We need a stitch ripper to open up the buttonhole. And you will, and also just to get yourself a chopstick or a blunt sort of instrument so you can push it all through nicely. So let's get started. Now you can make this big or small, however you'd like. I'm going to show you how I'm doing it, and then you can alter as you see fit. So maybe make one up like I am, and then think, okay, yeah, maybe I want to do mine bigger or smaller. So I've gone to the smaller side of the fat quarter, so this smaller side, and come in one of the squares. So where the folds are, I've come in one of the squares, and I'm just going to cut along that line. Okay, so I'm going to cut them both at the same time so that they are the same size. So you want 2 pieces exactly the same size. They can be super long, super wide, however, just 2 pieces the same. Then you put them with their right sides together, and then you want to sew along these 2 small sides. So the top and the bottom. So I get my machine ready, and I am just going to go along the top and the bottom with just the edge of my foot against the edge of the fabric for my seam allowance. She didn't like that. Right, so I'm just going to go along the top and the bottom, edge of the foot against the edge of the fabric for your seam allowance, backwards and forwards to start and finish. A little bit of a false start. Right, and again on the other side. So we are going along that small edge of the foot against the edge of the fabric, along. And then we've got our first part done. Okay, so next is we can get rid of the other parts of the fat quarters. We don't need those anymore. Now, a little bit tricky, so bear with me here. This is a bit tricky to explain. It's not tricky to do, tricky to explain. So let's pull this out now. So you've got it in a bit of a tube here. And I lay these down, so I have both of these seams facing each other. So the 2 seams I've just sewn are facing each other. Then I pull up the top and leave this, so you've got this little flap going along here. So I've just literally pulled it up like that, and I want to give myself a big enough gap, so definitely that the button, because this is what the button will go on, this is the bit that will flap down, so definitely big enough that the button's going to fit in there, and you can make it longer or shorter, but just as long as the button's going to fit there, okay? So I've got this part flapping out, and I know that the floral is going to be on the outside, so I'm going to sew all the way down to the end and down to the end and only up to this stitch line. So edge of the fabric against the edge of the foot, backwards and forwards to start. And now I've done both of the sides on the floral side, I'm going to do the inside. So the polka dot's going to be inside. So this time I'm going to sew down, but, hang on, let me show you with the stitch side. So there, just up to the stitch line and down and down. But this time, leave a gap. On one of these sides, leave a gap so that you can turn the whole thing through that gap. So again, edge of the foot against the edge of the fabric, and go for it. I'm going to stop, leave a gap, and come all the way back down to the end. And then go on the other side. And now there is one bit of stitching left to do before we can turn it through. At this stage, pop your iron on. So I'm going to plug my iron in so that I'm all ready to iron it when I turn it through. So iron's on. Now we're going to go from here up to the side, there, up to the side. So you've got polka dot on one side, flowers on the other, to the side, to the side. So it joins it all up. So now it's all joined up. Then, before I turn it through, I'm going to trim my edges. So go to each of these corners and just trim the edge. Trim the edge. Trim. So up to the stitch line, but not over. Make sure all of the threads are trimmed off. And then I go to the hole that I left on the side and turn it all through. Once you've got it all turned through, this is when you use your chopstick. So you take your chopstick and push out any of the edges. So you really want to get those edges nice and crisp, and that's why we trimmed them so that there was no bulk in the way. So I'm going to push that out, push it out, and this one out as well. So now it's looking like this, with a bit of flap on the edge. So you just want to push the lining inside. And so now it's starting to take shape. Now I'm going to press all this down nice and flat in place. Then I take my button here, and I know that I want my button to go there. Mine's quite small on this one, my other one was a bigger flap. But anyway, you can know, and you can alter the pattern as you like as well. So I know my button wants to go here, so I make a mark on there, and I go to the sewing machine, I change the foot. Now all you need to do is pull this out to the widest part. So as long as it is pulled to the widest part that it'll go. There. So So all the way to the widest part. And then I pull down the little guide on the machine. Okay, so I pull down the guide on the machine. I know where I want to put my buttonhole, so I place it, the foot in place, and know that it's going to, on this machine, it'll go backwards first, so up, and then so it's going to go away from me first of all. So I put 26 on here, and then I just press my foot down and let the machine do it for me. Now, you don't want to pull or push because the machine wants to do it on its own, all right? So don't pull and push. You can guide ever so slightly, but don't pull or push it because you're messing with its chi. So I'm just allowing it to do the buttonhole on its own. And it beeps and tells me it's finished. So I'm done. I can pull this out, trim off all my threads. Oh, that's a beautiful placement of the buttonhole, Libby Rose. Right, down, down. Okay, now we take our stitch ripper. Okay, so I've got my buttonhole here, and I take the stitch ripper and go in from one side, and I only want to push this halfway to open the buttonhole. So I've pushed it through, and you see I've made a hole in there, but only halfway, and then I go to the other side of the buttonhole from the edge and push that to meet the other one. I don't go from one side and just push it all the way through because you don't want to go over it and make a mistake and make the hole too big. So you go in half and in half and trim off any threads. And now last of all, I take my button and pop it in place, and I can make a little mark. You can make a mark with a pen or with tailor's chalk in the middle of your buttonhole so you get that marking on the other side. Place your button in place where it's going to work. Take your needle and thread, here's one I got earlier, and make sure it's knotted in the end, and I go from the back first of all and up and then back down, and I'm doing the one side. So this is a 4-hole buttonhole, and I'm just going to do one side up and down first of all. Now making sure that you keep meeting yourself on the same stitch, so go back and forward on that same stitch so it's nice and neat on both sides. One thing my mum always taught me was that for things to look nice on the inside as well as out. When I was a child, I didn't really mind. I just used to say, oh, whatever, it looks good on the outside, that's fine. But nowadays, I totally agree. It's about taking pride in your work, and also it's just lovely when things look nice on the inside too, and it's much more professional. So I'm going up and down on one side, and then when that side feels nice and tight, I am then going to go and find the hole, the other 2 holes on this side. So I go diagonal on the inside again, and I go backwards and forwards with those 2 again, double checking on the inside that it's nice. And we're just meeting, so we're going up and down on the same stitch so it looks nice and neat on the inside too. And when you feel that that is tight, you can then knot it. I always loop it from the inside. I catch one of the stitches on the inside and loop it around to make my knot, but you can make your knot in the best way that you know how. But we want to have a nice knot in there so that, of course, the button doesn't fall off, because that wouldn't be very nice. Okay, and then you want to tie it in a knot. And once it's neatly knotted, trim off all your loose threads. Now, because the buttonhole is slightly smaller than these giant buttons, the first time you push it through, it might be a little bit tight, but it will loosen over time. And now you've got a super cute little wallet for your phone or your, you know, media device or whatever you'd like to use it for. And I really hope that you've enjoyed making with me as much as I've enjoyed making with you today. And if you're on YouTube, you can check in the Miss Libby Makes playlist, and there's lots of other makes in there as well. Do sign up to the MailChimp newsletter as well, because I do newsletters on Wednesdays and Sundays, and you can get lots of other fun makes and updates and all sorts. So yeah, so I try to keep those as interesting as possible too. But I look forward to seeing you again, and thank you so much for making with me today.